Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing okay. We had a big drop on the technical scores. We're measuring all these instruments, and we can see the VIX really pumped, and the yields carried on pumping as well. They're pretty relentless right now. Individual companies had fallen, and the dollar index rose. So that's quite risk off, and that's why we've got a poor score. And now, incidentally, the herd have also been buying the dips, and if they continue to do so, we're going to have that number go closer to zero. If we go into positive territory, it will tell us that the herd are net long. And if they're net long, that's going to be very bearish because every time they've done that, we've always had like a crash, and we'll go into positive territory, and then there has to be someone to sell it. And we've got 100 million retail traders buying indices. There has to be a large entity to sell, and it's not just the sentiment that's causing the crash, but it's a big factor in in the decision making of the big fish, because normally the retail guys are wrong and they're counter trend. So if they're buying en masse on average the indices, then that's obviously a bit of a concern, a big worry for the big pockets. So we need to keep an eye on that, and we need to keep an eye on this. So if we continue, also I say if they continue to buy, then that number is going to get closer to zero, and that's going to be an omen for a massive risk off, and we'll see a big puke like we did for the COVID thing. So maybe the Russia-Ukraine thing as well. We puked a lot on that as well. So be careful here. QDB scores quickly, and EA at the top would make sense because that's a risk off indication. Aussie is riskier than the euro, so the euro is appreciating over the Aussie, and therefore we're green, so that would make sense fundamentally. Sentimentally and technically, it's okay. We've got a good score, and they're very short, and so prices coming up. So we should see reds down here, we should see greens up here. Okay, so it's fairly quite simple, and that's that. So I'm going to talk about a bit about the robot today, and I think we're going to put in a new thing potentially on the weekend. So we're going to see how we go this week, because we've got the Jackson Hole. And if we have a negative week, I've got quite a good suggestion that we can probably implement. So let's get my RDP, bring that across. DAX, a little bit sideways, just a bit sideways. So it's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen. They've gone long, so we can probably draw a box here. And like I said in Discord, we've got a box within a box. So it's going to be a bit choppy. And this is a very thin box as well here. Yeah, ish, maybe here. Actually, maybe this is the right one. So basically we're a box within a box. We did break a little bit below the low, but we shouldn't really be above because they've gone long here. But it might be looking at the US counterparts, because they are selling on the indices, on the US indices. It's 30. And I'm off to London this afternoon, so I'm probably going to be wrapping up my trades, I think, before I go out, because I kind of wouldn't mind monitoring them, but obviously if I'm out seeing friends, I can't monitor my trade. So I think we're going to get a buy potentially. We need the crossover. Once we do, then we can draw a box, and we can make a box here because they've gone long. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say, isn't it? The cursor could be darker on this trading station because you're trying to map it, and it's really hard to see. They went long. We had the crossover here. So likewise, this is going to be a very much of a congested zone here, very choppy. Oh God, that would do, I guess. So basically just chop, and this is probably going to be quite messy if we get back in there, and we need a break above that ideally. And S&P. Gold was really naughty, by the way, because we took out a stop loss cluster over Asia, and we just took one out prior to the London Open. So it's really naughty. They are selling it ever so slightly, but now sideways. I just posted something in Discord, and that was ticking down, but unfortunately with the sideways again. So be careful. We are a buy at the big picture, but we don't want the herd to be buying. See what happens when they go long. And they went long. Right, so we don't want them to be going long if we've got a long bias. And I'll show you gold. And it's very naughty. So there's your stop loss cluster. You can see, and now it's ticking down. We might inevitably have this diagonal break, but that kind of rinsed out. Probably, what's the best way to say it? It's a bit like a gut punch, I guess you could say. This was probably maybe the limit. This is like the threshold, and you know they thought, oh, this is the stops. We probably are going to continue lower, and you know we would have taken one out here and here, and they just got completely rinsed. So that might be this might be indicative of a bottom because the fact that they're selling it. So they probably think we can see a continuation of that break. So big stop loss cluster and a big wick as well. So that lots of the buying pressure after taking liquidity. And this is my idea for the robot. So just bear with me. Right. So we're going to keep it a little bit simple, and we're going to look at a currency pair. And we're going to look at its static sentiment. So whenever something gets to 50%, then we'll be trading it, and we're going to trade the crossover on that 50%. Okay, so that's not the greatest example because that's the basket. I'll show you the API, the individual currencies. So pound USD. You know, we're trading it when it crosses 50%. So if it crosses from above to below, it'd be a buy. If it crosses from below to above, it'd be a sell. And now they're selling it. So therefore, we could probably trade that pound USD. And we're going to be doing sort of tight stops for trailing stops. So this is the 50%. And if they sell it, it should be a buy. And if they go long, it should be a sell. But we're going to trade the 50% crossover. So we can also see Aussie Kiwi is a potential candidate for a 50% crossover, and Euro CAD potentially. So we were just waiting for the 50% cross. Basically, we'll keep it nice and easy. We won't need to put on all these loads of conditions that we had before. Still obviously have the ATR stop loss. That's fine. We don't need to worry about the shifting. We don't need to worry about the QDB scores as well. So we'll just keep it quite simple. So if eventually CAD yen crosses over to 50%, it will be a sell, and then we'll be looking to exploit it on the 50% crossover. All right, so that's the logic of the robot, and it should mean less spam and less concern about them getting paid or rewarded or at a loss for the failure rate. We don't really care if they're getting paid or not. We're just trading the 50% crossover and that indecision that we'll see on the 50% crossover. So we could catch it, and we can catch a nice move, and that's where the trading stop will come in. So it could be, you know, something like this where our profit would be nice and high, and we'll be out our trading stop nice and high profit, and then, you know, out of trading stop. So I think this is possibly a good thing we're going to do. And it'll just be a case of waiting for the sentiment to come to us. We won't be chasing it. And then once it comes to our 50% target, then we'll be trading it. And then we'll just see how we go. Pound CAD potentially. You know, once we get to 50%, it will trigger. Pound Swiss, for example, too. So that's my thinking. Let me know what you think. I think it should be quite cool, but, you know, we'll have to see how we go. And we've got Jackson Hole on Friday as well. So remember, I'm off in London. I'm going to be leaving probably about 4 or 5 hours, I guess. And I might try and get some kip before I go because I had a pretty rubbish sleep. So I might do that. And remember to trade safely, and let me know what you think about the robot. I think this could be quite good, but we'll have to see how we go.